Welcome to another motocross action video. Today we are at one of the most beautiful tracks in the US. It's Washougal Motorcycle Park, and we are riding the all-new 2025 Kawasaki KX250. So this bike is all new for 2025, and right away you can see that it has the 450 chassis the KX 450 got last year. Same exact frame, same bodywork, and also another huge change. The KX 250 has primarily been Kawasaki suspension. Now it's Showa suspension, matching what's also on the 450. Now the engine itself, I wouldn't call it all new. The bottom end is still very similar to last year, almost identical, but the top end is where they focused all their efforts on making more low to mid power. The KX 250 engine last year made 45 horsepower on the dyno. It was the fastest bike on the dyno, but you really had to rev to get up into the power range. For 2025, they really optimized airflow going in and out of the engine, trying to boost that low to mid power. So how did they do it? Well, Kawasaki has a new airbox, new frame, and also a new shock that plays into the power character. The shock has been made shorter so that the airbox can go up and over it and down straight into the cylinder head. Inside the engine, they have a different piston, also a smaller intake valve, all trying to optimize airflow into the engine and also optimize airflow out of the engine. A new center port exhaust that goes through the frame up here, and then the exhaust, the header, is a little bit tighter, closer to the frame, which will make it better for ergonomics, but also better for air coming out. So we already loved the KX 250 engine last year, strongest bike in the class. Now we're excited to see what it does with a little more bottom end torque. One thing you should know is that Kawasaki reads the comments. They've seen that everybody's been complaining about how big their mufflers are for the last few years. For 2025, they moved it a little bit shorter to centralize mass, make it a little bit better looking. Now the KX 250 muffler is sharp, stylish, and it's got a pretty sweet little resonance chamber on the header as well. Matching that sharp new exhaust system is the sharp new styling of the KX 250. Very smooth, sleek styling all the way across. Very little seams, only one seam right here in the middle. Good contact patch for gripping the bike with your legs. The shrouds come out pretty far and then angle to the front here so you don't get your legs caught when you're leaning over in deep ruts. And Kawasaki is the best in class for adjustability. These foot pegs right here, you can drop them down to a second hole to make it lower and further back. Also, the handlebar mounts, of course, have 4 different mounting positions. So Kawasaki KX250, very adjustable bike to make it taller or shorter, depending on your size and skill. But wait, there's more. Kawasaki also has a KX250X model. Now this is the same platform as the motocross bike, but it comes with softer suspension settings, Dunlop AT81 tires, an 18-inch rear wheel, and a kickstand. And you might recognize this map switch right here. It's come on Honda models for the last few years and the Kawasaki KX 450 last year. Well, now it's on the 2025 KX 250, and that means that you can connect your smartphone to your bike to update mapping, check suspension settings, and log different data in there on the app. So pretty cool that you can do it on your 450, and now that same technology transfers to the 250. All right, first impressions 2025 KX 250. Pleasantly surprised with that bottom end. I haven't really felt the chassis too much just because it's 2 laps, but bottom end, pretty good. I'm excited. And we have Adam Cincerilla here. Now, he said he's not doing lap times today, but I bet by the end of the day, he'll be doing some lap times. Almost 3 hours of riding later, we rode a ton and we got our money's worth here at the Washougal National Track on the brand new bike. First impressions, I was impressed with the bottom end snap that this thing had, and those impressions carried throughout the day. The map that we started with wasn't the stock base map. They gave us the Tickle map. Brock Tickle gave his Tickle Touch on the KX 250, giving this thing a little extra snap and a little more excitement. He developed that map for us yesterday here at Washougal, and it gave what I think is the most power that this engine can make in its stock form, and we liked it today. I liked it today. I did try the stock map as well. I'd say Brock Tickle's map was probably about 20% better, so just enough to kind of open up the power on the bottom end and give it a little more snap. I also tried riding the bike with the airbox cover off, getting more air into the engine. It didn't really help that much. I'd say maybe 5%, maybe just a hair more initial throttle response. It did make the bike louder, but not really any faster on the power department. Talking about the airbox, we have been very critical of the KX450 design for the airbox, and it's good to know that the KX250 is not the same airbox. It's a lot more open up around the air filter. Pro Circuit last year, if you took your KX to them, they would take a Dremel and cut a bunch of plastic just to get more air going in there. They would also drill holes in the airbox cover, all to get more air into the engine. Also, twin air power flow kit, that helped with that too. For the KX250, thankfully, it has much more plastic cut away. If you just look at it from the outside, it looks pretty tight and closed off, but once you reach your hand back in there, a lot more air can get into that air filter. So that does help. Engines are all about making horsepower, and they're real pumps. They pump in air and fuel, explode, and make power. And if you don't get air and you kind of suffocate the bike, it'll mute the power and take away some of that potential horsepower that it has. So more air helps, and we're thankful they did that to this new airbox. Talking about the chassis, I was super impressed with the new Showa suspension. Last year, we were super critical about the KX250's harsh setup on the suspension. The KX250, ever since it joined that KX450 frame, the last, I believe, 2 years, we have a hard time steering the KX250, especially in its stock form. And the KYB suspension did not help. Super stiff forks on the front end. We had to go lighter on spring rate, take oil out, and just to try to get some movement in the front end and get some traction coming into corners. Kawasaki switched from KYB to Showa suspension for 2025, and I was impressed with it today. But you also should know that we did not start out with the stock settings. Kawasaki tailored this bike. They made changes to the mapping, as like I said, they gave us the best map possible, the Tickle map. They also changed the radiator cap. Instead of the 1.1, which comes stock, they gave us a stronger 1.8 radiator cap for added durability, keep that coolant inside these radiators. But on suspension, stock clicker settings would be 16 for compression, 16 for rebound. They started us out with 8 for compression and 7 for rebound. So quite a bit stiffer on compression and rebound. Also on the shock, they went in on the high speed quite a bit to 2.5 turns, and they also went in on the rebound on the shock as well compared to what this bike will come with stock. So for us today, going in on the suspension clickers did help give us a little more hold up, but I was really impressed with how plush it was and how easy it was to turn. Washougal was not rough today. The track was smooth, very easy to ride, but it did get slippery, and when it got slippery, it made it a little bit harder to steer into these turns. So I actually went in on the high speed even more to 2.25 turn out. That raised up the rear end and put a little more weight on the front end and helped me turn even better. So Showa suspension, 2 thumbs up. First day of testing so far, but this is a smooth Washougal national track, and they did feed us a nice dinner last night. They're trying to sweeten up the deal, so the real suspension and chassis tests will be when we get back home. So what does it feel like to ride the KX250? I'm honestly pretty impressed by it. We talked about the frame and the engine on the 22, 23, 24 model with the big gap it had up here in the front where you could stick your whole hand in between the engine and the frame cradle. Now that's closed up a lot more, helping with the center of mass on this thing and also just helping with the handling in and out of corners a little bit easier. I had no problems turning this thing today here at Washougal. It did get slippery at the end of the day, but Washougal, if you guys have ridden it, you know how slippery this track can get. So I was impressed with the handling of it. Nice to dip in and out of corners. It's not as nimble as a CRF 250. The Honda chassis is just extremely nimble. When you're throwing whips off jumps or just trying to dive in and out of corners, the Honda is super easy to turn. Not that level of nimble, but still a stable and nimble bike. Engine and vibration. The KX450, we've complained about how much vibration you get in your hands. KX250, vibration is not an issue. Also, ODI Lock-On grips, very nice. I'm really thankful to have those on the KX250 and the 450 models. Another difference about the KX250 and the 450 comes with a Brembo front brake, a Nissan rear brake. The KX250, Nissan front, Nissan rear. I still prefer Brembo, and I like the control that you get out of a Brembo front brake on the 450, but it's not a big deal having the Nissan on the 250. It's not as heavy, you're not coming into corners as fast on a 250, so I'd still prefer Brembo, but can't complain too much about the front brake on this bike. I should also mention that it was random that we picked Levi Kitchen's number to ride Levi Kitchen's bike at Levi Kitchen's home track. Kind of funny there, but the 47 worked good today and the plastics work good today. Super smooth and easy to grip onto the bike. That's something I appreciate about Kawasaki. Also, another thing I appreciate, the adjustability. We mentioned it with the foot pegs and with the bar mounts, but also the engine hangers here. These are adjustable. We've done it on our KX 450 model and actually reduced vibration for Josh Fout when he tested it, trying the different position with the different engine mounts. So it's a really cool. Kawasaki's the only manufacturer that offers optional engine mounts, and that's something you can buy through Kawasaki. Today we didn't get to try that. They don't have those for this model yet. Those will be coming soon, but I did get to try a bike with lowered foot pegs and also the handlebars in the forward mount position with the rotating bar mounts turned backwards. So opened up the cockpit just a little bit. For me, it was better. I'm 6 foot, 175, having a little bit longer legs. I did like that, but the stock platform is not cramped either. Can't really complain about it. Next up, the KX Ridology app. So we're stoked that that technology is transferred over to the KX 250 model. It allows you to connect your smartphone to your bike via Wi-Fi to adjust the mapping, but it still has a long ways to go to catch up to Yamaha. Yamaha's been doing it for years now. You can adjust throttle response, engine braking, and you can also monitor engine hours with Yamaha, so you don't need an hour meter on your bike. Kawasaki, you still need to have that hour meter because you can't do it through the app yet. Also, light off is map 1, light on is a more aggressive version. So that's flip-flop from the 450. Light on is mellow on the 450. Light on is aggressive on the KX 250. Still for me today, I tried different settings, but the tickle map was definitely the way to go. The map switch also has a traction control button up here to do strong or lesser version of traction control. So that's pretty cool that you have that option, and you have launch control to help you out on the starts as well. So 2025 KX 250, I'm honestly impressed with the engine and super impressed with the chassis. They took a huge step forward. Suspension settings, I'd say, are set for somebody in the 160-ish range. A little light for me, 175, but great setup for an average rider on a KX 250. So impressed, excited to get this thing home and put it up against the rest of our bikes for our 250 shootout. As always, this is our first ride and our initial opinion on a smooth track here at Washougal, but great times on the KX 250. For more on this bike and on other bikes, stay tuned for our 250 shootout and more on motocrossactionmag.com.